Difference between UnxUtils and GnuWin32. I am a Windows user who wants programs like grep and z along with other utilities like ls, cut etc. in my command prompt. I came across two packages which would accomplish this. UnxUtils, GnuWin32. I would like to know what is the difference between the two, both feature-wise and more importantly performance-wise, before I choose between them. From what I have seen, GnuWin32 is a superset of UnxUtils. Is this correct? Note by Barlop. This question was asking about coreutils and UnxUtils, but since he was talking about grep and z, it's clear he meant to ask about GnuWin32 and UnxUtils, and that is a much more useful and important question than the mistaken one. If people want to revert it to coreutils and UnxUtils, then I'd be happy to go with that and post another question for GnuWin32 and UnxUtils. Also, any proper answer to his original question would correct or answer regarding his mistake, but also answer what he meant. So there's no loss in correcting his question.
UnxUtils has really old versions of a bunch of some of the most useful utilities, including grep for example. GnuWin32 versions are also many years out of date, though not nearly old as UnxUtils. GnuWin32 has a much larger number of utilities. That's obviously a major advantage. Bear in mind that GnuWin32 has that major advantage over UnxUtils. As an example, the extremely old UnxUtils. The rather old GnuWin32. Contrast with software that is kept more up to date than GnuWin32, for example Cygwin. With UnxUtils, you can run into issues as it uses really old versions, and when looking for help people will expect you to have the latest version of this or that command. There are some smaller advantages that UnxUtils has, that makes UnxUtils very useful. UnxUtils has XXD, GnuWin32 does not. Note, Vim 7 also has XXD, so does Cygwin. GnuWin32 as of writing 2014 has a broken tail F, UnxUtils' tail F is older but works. Mention here Cygwin's tail also works. On two different occasions I've run into bugs in GnuWin32 grep which have been fixed in later versions of grep, and Cygwin's grep was much later and fine and can be run straight from cmd.exe and doesn't have to be run from the Cygwin shell. The following is a smaller advantage, but if you're very lazy, or just want to use it quickly, then UnxUtils is just a zip you can extract the executables and go. GnuWin32 involves a wizard to install various bits, and even some individual utilities have to be installed separately, like a setup executable for Rouget, one for grep for example, grep4xbin.exe. With UnxUtils you just extract from their bin directory within the zip. Bear in mind though they are older versions, so if possible, if not being too lazy, one would generally see if GnuWin32 has it. UnxUtils can work standalone where lots of the equivalent GnuWin32 binaries cannot. So if you don't want to or can't install GnuWin32, then you can use a command standalone from UnxUtils. For example, GnuWin32's tr.exe requires two DLL files in its directory, or it says they're not there and won't run. GnuWin32's sed doesn't work standalone, whereas UnxUtils' tr.exe and sed.exe work fine standalone. UnxUtils has clip.exe and pclip.exe. They are commands to copy to the clipboard and paste from the clipboard. GnuWin32 doesn't seem to have anything like it, and Windows natively has clip.exe to copy to the clipboard, but no command to paste it like pclip. The UnxUtils SourceForge link has UnxUtils.zip and UnxUpdates.zip, the latter being a subset of UnxUtils.zip but with later those still old versions. For example, UnxUtils has said from 1998, and UnxUtils has one from 2003. That can help. For example, the 1998 said doesn't have \d or \x notation, for example \d34 or \x22 to specify quotes easier than escaping quotes. The UnxUtils one is from 2003, as the GnuWin32 said, as of writing, is from 2009. GnuWin32's is still out of date as there is a grep version even for 2014 this URL, but GnuWin32's is much less out of date than UnxUtils even when UnxUtils is considered with UnxUtils. This URL cites UnxUtils.zip is down but is available this URL and officially this URL, and if you're going to get it then download UnxUtils too. Comparing GnuWin32 to UnxUtils, generally look to GnuWin32, but know that UnxUtils has some advantages. GnuWin32 has almost all the commands that UnxUtils has, plus a lot more. And also, look to Cygwin, it has a huge collection of utilities kept much more up to date than GnuWin32. They should be run from Cygwin's bash shell, which is fine by me. You generally don't really need to look at something ancient and not updated like UnxUtils, though it does have pclip and clip. Besides GnuWin32 and UnxUtils, there are also MingWin, Cygwin and Windows SUA, which as of writing, MS still maintains and would be up to date, and GAO, which is small, though the GAO GitHub page shows it as last updated 2014, and smaller still, BusyBox, famous for Android but is available for Windows, here and is still very small. The two most impressively featured for me are GnuWin32 and Cygwin has XXD and a working tailf. So I don't need to resort to UnxUtils. With Cygwin, programs should really be run from the Cygwin shell, but it's a Linux shell, for example Bash shell, and Bash and other Linux shells are powerful, so no loss there. Also bear in mind that nowadays many people use Linux virtual machines instead of Cygwin or GnuWin32, which really gets up-to-date proper versions of the commands, rather than Windows ports that can be older and can behave differently with quotes. Added no coreutils, aka new coreutils, is a bunch of commands that run on Linux, and no doubt the new OS with herd, a less widely used OS, and probably has some decent implementations done for other Nix OS. New coreutils is well known and extremely widely used and useful and updated. On the other hand, UnxUtils is a very old implementation / port of some commands people use on Linux or Unix, which would no doubt include some coreutils commands, done for the Windows OS. The two wouldn't normally even be mentioned in the same sentence, and the only reason why they were in the original question was due to some confusion in the original question. GnuWin32 does have an implementation of coreutils for Windows, called GnuWin32 coreutils, though as mentioned, GnuWin32 is old / not updated, just not as old / not updated as UnxUtils.
UnxUtils are Windows native and have no dependencies, but haven't been updated in a while, and are a subset of coreutils. You'd need a Nix-style environment for coreutils, so you'd need to run them in Cygwin or similar.
Coreutils from GnuWin32 has cut, see this URL.